Hello and welcome to Lewis Nichols Live Stories in association with Mr. Shane Solomon. And I'm really excited today because we're celebrating 75 years in the industry with the one and only Melvyn Hayes. Thank you for coming down and taking part today.
Oh, it's a pleasure. It's wonderful. I'm in this fantastic studio. It's miles from anywhere. We're at Bodmin.
Bodmin, we're right at the end of the place, and yeah, this is the studio.
It's wonderful. How many years did you say?
That this has been here?
No, just how many years have I been here?
75. 75.
75 years.
75 years, and what a career. We've got so much to talk about, and I kind of want to go back to the very beginning, which is kind of your childhood. So did you come from a performing background?
No, my dad would have laughed at that. Not at all. Except my mother, I believe. Over the years, I found out she used to sing in the working men's clubs, and I think her song was "Get Out and Get Under." And she, I think she wanted to be something to do with the stage, but it was. I wanted to be a jockey.
Really?
No. No, the thing is, when I say I wanted to be, everybody else said, you should be a jockey because you're so small. And I wrote to the Queen. She wasn't the Queen then. She was just Princess Elizabeth. And I wrote and I said, Your Royal Highness, I understand you've got this wonderful stables and I would like to join. And I was 15 years of age. And I got a letter back saying Her Royal Highness was very interested to hear about your career. Unfortunately, she's on holiday in Malta, but wishes you luck. That was it, really. But I finished up in a racing studio in Epsom, and I lasted 2 weeks. Well, I didn't know the one end of the horse from another. But I think it was a great racing writer for one of the national dailies who said, after my first television play, said, the best thing Melvyn Hayes did for racing was to give it up.
Very harsh.
Terrible.
Maybe factual, though.
Yeah. I mean, the point is to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning or something. And I worked it out that if you actually looked at the day's racing, there's about 25 jockeys, and they're the same ones, and there's about 30,000 apprentices. And I thought, no, that's not for me. But when I grow up, one day I'm going to grow up and get a proper job. Because I've never done a day's work in my life. I mean, acting is sort of, it's like a hobby. It's a pleasure. It's a joy. I've written a book which took me 38 years to write. I started in 1986. And I finished it this year, and it gets published next year.
Wow.
January. I've called it It Ain't Half Late, Mum.
Oh, that's a clever play. I like that.
Did you like it?
Really clever play there.
And
I love that.
I'm just in the throes of finishing the editing at the moment. And and it's all in there. It's all in the book, the ups and the downs, because I don't recommend it to anybody. It's one of the hardest. Being an actor is one of the hardest jobs. It's wonderful to be playing somebody else. It was like Ronnie Barker used to say, I don't know who I am. He said, I am only come to life when I'm playing another character. And I know exactly what he means. But what would you ask me?
Well, I was asking if you came from a performing background, but then we went to jockey, Princess Elizabeth, and now we've got quite a good insight into what acting means to you. But just going back to, because I'm looking, you said about having a proper job, but one thing I read, and I mean, you're going to have to forgive me because I don't know what it means, so you'll need to educate me on this. You were carrying advertising print blocks between newspapers, and I have no idea what that means.
Well, what it was, I was working in Fleet Street at the News Chronicle building, getting £2 5 a week, carrying blocks. Now, blocks were the print blocks that went in the newspaper advertising. So certain, for example, this paper, this firm would want to advertise all the newspapers across the country. In Fleet Street, you'd find them in little offices. So you'd climb stairs with these heavy blocks of wood, metal and wood. And one day, I was passing the Daily Mirror, and the papers just come out flying, and they'd give you the paper. They'd give you in those days, and there was an advert in the Daily Mirror. It said, "Boy wanted to disappear twice daily. And Masculine's Mysteries at the Comedy Theatre London. Wages £5 a week this Christmas." So I thought, that's it, isn't it? I'm working on £2, 5 shillings a week, and here's a job going for a £5, and it's in show business. So I phoned the Comedy Theatre London, and I spoke to the stage doorman, and I said, when is the audition for The Boy to Disappear up the Indian Rope Trick? And they said, tomorrow. And I thought, oh, forget it. So I didn't go because I thought there'd be thousands there. The following Sunday, my father went down to visit his relations in the East End of London, Petticoat Lane. And for some reason, he bought a different Sunday paper home with him. And it said, just 2 lines, "They're still looking for that boy. Auditions next week at the Comedy Theatre London." I thought, I'm going there. It's an omen. It's an omen. And I was the only one that could stay up the rope long enough for all the press to take pictures. So there was my picture in every newspaper as I climbing up the rope. And the great Masoni, the magician, said to me, right, we'd like you to, for the Christmas job, and the wages are, well, I knew what the wages were, £5 a week, it said it, right? And he looked at his business manager and said, and the wages are £4 a week. And I thought, this is show business. I'm being conned. And it was from that day to this that I still query every penny that I've ever earned over the years, because there's always somebody that's going to try and, I don't know. I did the disappearing up the Indian Road Trick. But he said to me on the last night of the show, unfortunately, we're going on tour and we can't afford to take you with us. But I found you another job. And I said, oh, wonderful. Is it another show? And he said, well, not exactly. I said, is it backstage then? Backstage? Well, he said, not exactly. I said, is it front of house? He said, I said, what is it exactly then? He said, an assistant night watchman in a factory in Croydon. So I said, but I'm in show business now. And he said, well, on the other hand, we could take you with us if you were going to be the property master, assistant stage manager, work the lights, the switches, look after all the animals in the show, and take a cut in salary. He was a brilliant magician. I mean, he can make things disappear like that, especially my wages. He was amazing. I mean, he produced billiard balls from all orifices of his body. So I went on tour with him, played the Chinese boy as well as the Indian boy. I only had one line, which was, he'd say, little boy from India, are you ready? And I would say, yes, master, I am ready, and I'd disappear. And that was how I mean, what a silly way to start a profession. And then sort of 8 years later, I'm playing leads in films. And to me, it's been one surprise after another. I'm very lucky. I'm 104. Well, I feel 104. To have actually got myself into a job. Yeah. It's not work. It's not work at all.
It's a pleasure, by the sounds of it, something you really love.
Oh, I have it with a passion. I love it. I mean, what else? Why else would I be here in Cornwall talking about show business? Talking about Cornwall, last night I was taken out and I heard a record. Can I mention it?
Of course.
I heard, and it's like your, what do you call it? Like if I was a Cockney, which I am, maybe it's because I'm a Londoner, which to me would be my national anthem.
Oh, so our anthem.
And yours is my...
Cornwall, my home.
Cornwall, my...
Yes.
And I heard this is a new version and it's brilliant. It's absolutely wonderful. And it was very emotional. So I suddenly felt as if I'd been treated to something very special. You know the song, yes?
Yeah, whose version did you listen to? Couldn't be Shane's.
It was Shane's.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. You would love it in tune. I've got a very good cover, so we'll show you.
Really?
No, Shane's out there now. He's going to kill me for that one. But if I can go back to, for you, your earliest TV memory. So can you remember that moment where you kind of had that break where you were on the screen?
It was called The Unloved. It was a drama documentary about this home. There's a special home in school for maladjusted young men and women. And I was playing the lead in it. I think Rupert Davis, Maygrey, was playing the headmaster in this school. And I remember it was live, to do it live. And the last scene, I remember, was going home. It's Christmas. And he goes home. He runs away from the school. And he knocks on the door. And his mother opens it. And there's this fella there. And who gives him a clout around the face. And I remember, because it was live, as I hit the ground, the director had said to me, "You'll find a blood sponge under there." And I suddenly thought, this is live television. And supposing I pick up the sponge and put it on my face and people see it, I'll kill it, that'd be it. And so I ignored the sponge and just came up and the notices I got were amazing. And the strangest thing happened. A man who was a cameraman, I saw many years later in the Isle of Wight, said to me, I was the cameraman, he said, on that, one of the cameramen, he said, I'd never seen anything like it in the studio. When you finished your performance, the rest of the company applauded you. I said, yes, and what you didn't know is one of the actors came up to me, a young actor, and said, enjoy, it won't last. And unfortunately for him, it did.
75 years and going, you know?
And still, yeah. And that was my first, this drama documentary, and the thing that gave me a kick-off. Film-wise, the big one for me was a film called No Trees in the Street. They've just reissued it with Sylvia Sims, Herbert Lom, Stanley Holloway, all these wonderful people. I remember the first day on the set, I saw my chair with my name on it. And I thought, I just walked around looking at it and thought, I can't sit on it because the spell will be broken. And then I realized that none of the others were sitting in their own chairs. They, like Herbert Lom was in Sylvia Sims' chair. And it was wonderful moments. I mean, I remember the premiere night in the West End of London of No Trees in the Street. They turned the Empire, I think it was, in Leicester Square, into Piccadilly, into Petticoat Lane, with all the stalls and everything, with fruit and things, everybody on it. And I was surrounded by all these famous names, because my billing was introducing. And suddenly, through the crowd, I see two figures coming towards me in terrible fitting dinner suits with cabbages and cauliflowers sticking out their pockets. And they went, Melvyn, stop talking to this lot. It was two of my uncles. Uncle Sam and Uncle Jaime. And they were saying, it's all for nothing. It's get in there, La son. It's all free. Don't waste it. And there's Jack Warner there, wonderful Dixon the Dog Green, saying to me, if you need any help in the business. And there's my uncle dragging me away. And brought me right down to earth. But yeah, that was a very early break.
Well, you've also, a lot of people know you from the Curse of Frankenstein
Wow.
with, is it young Victor?
Victor, yeah, I think I'm one of the youngest Frankensteins there was. What happened was, I went to audition to play Peter Cushing as a young man. And there was only, I think I had 4 days on the picture. I think I was longer in the dressing room changing costumes than I was on the screen. But it was an amazing experience because it was such an overnight success. Peter Cushing was such a one. I did 5 films with Peter, and he was such a lovely man. Lovely to work with. I mean, on one, I remember on a film called Violent Playground. We were in Liverpool, and he was playing a priest, and we were in this Roman Catholic church. And he said, I don't know whether I've done the right thing. So I said, what do you mean? He said, well, I'm all dressed as a priest, right? He said, and this little old lady said to me, would you pray for me, Father? And I said, yes. And he said, well, I did. I stood there and I prayed for her. And I said, I should have said, I'm an actor. I said, no, not at all. And he was a wonderful man.
Wow.
And in America, when it opened in America, the audience came dressed as the monster. And I heard a story from Peter Rogers, who produced all the Carry On films. I did Carry On England. And when they were looking to cast the monster, a memo went out and it said, we're looking for somebody big. It doesn't have to be an actor, just somebody big. And it came down to 2 people, Bernard Bresslaw and Christopher Lee. And they phoned Bernard Breslaw's agent and said, how much is his daily rate? And by all accounts, Bernard Breslaw's agent said, we wouldn't look for less than £10 a day. So they phoned up Christopher Lee's agent and said, what's his daily rate? And he said, he must have £8 a day. And so for £2, it became an international star.
Wow, that's incredible.
I know, it's. I remember years later at some hammer do, I went up to Christopher Lee and said, I made you.
What was his response?
What? And I just walked away. I'm so sorry. And 25 years later, I saw him again. And I went up and I said, a few years ago, I said to you, yeah, what? And I said, can I have your autograph, please? Yeah, he was lovely, but just that's how they cast it. Very strange, but it was I did 5 pictures, as I say, with Peter, but that's the one that people remember. They keep on reissuing it, and I'm signing pictures and things of me as young Victor.
Well, I was going to say, when I was looking back at some of your work, some of it's in black and white, you know?
Yeah.
And for me, I've always been used to colour TV. I know a lot of people have. And Operation Amsterdam, for instance, a black and white film that you did. And it's just, you look at it and think, wow, you know, because I've always been used to colour.
Well, funny enough, we did, The Curse of Frankenstein was in Eastman colour. And one of the reasons I got the part, I believe, was my eyes were the same colour as Peter's. Because they didn't use, in those days, what do you call it, when you put different...
lenses.
Lenses in the eyes. So that was one of the reasons I think got it. I don't know. But it's still being shown at various times, and I was very proud to be a monster.
You've done a lot of comedy. We're going to talk about Carry On, but obviously Bottoms Up as well in 1960 as Cecil. I mean, what were your memories from that? Do you have fond memories?
Well, I'd worked with Jimmy Edwards on Wacko, on Seven Faces of Jim, on the worst television series ever made, which I played. He played a knight and I played his squire, called Sir Yellow, and Bottoms Up, which wouldn't be made today. It was, I phoned up the local cinema manager at the Majestic Clapham years and years and years ago when I was very young, and I said, I see you're playing a film this week called Bottoms Up. He said, yes. I said, is it possible to have a couple of comps for it, please? Complimentaries, because I'm in it. And he said, you can have the lot, the cinema's empty. So I said, oh, not that good. He said, not that good. He said, load of rubbish.
Oh, no.
Yeah, that was, but you expect that.
I wouldn't have expected that. Everything you've done seems to have just been a huge success, so it's quite surprising. But I've got to say, I love Oliver Twist, the film and the TV series. And I mean, you were the Artful Dodger.
I played on television.
On the series.
British BBC version. Oh, yeah, that's right.
Love the character. So cheeky. He's got his wits about him. Did you enjoy playing the character and the development of that?
Oh, it was wonderful. It's very interesting because years later, I got a letter from a public house in Newport, in Wales, saying, we're changing the name of our public house because we're opposite the income tax office to the Artful Dodger, right? And please find enclosed if we enclosed a couple of pictures, would you sign them so we could hang them up in the pub? So these pictures arrived of me with Nancy and me by myself. Beautiful pictures. And I signed them, sent them off to this public house and thought no more about it. The years go by and I'm on my way to Swansea, driving with another member of the cast. And I said, do you mind if we turn off and go into a pub that many, many years ago I sent some pictures to? And I said, I'd love to go there. So the person said, yes, of course, Miss Elliot, yes, love to. And so we go to this, and there's this funny little pub called the Artful Dodger. And I go inside, and it's a dingy-looking pub, and there's only two pictures up, either side of the bar, me and Nancy.
Still there.
And I said, that's amazing. And then the barman came out, and I said, they're nice pictures, aren't they? He said, yes, what can I do for you? I said, could we have lager, and I'll have ginger beer, please. So he's doing the thing, and I said, yeah, they're really nice pictures, aren't they? Where are they from? From the television, are they? And he says, yeah. He said, it doesn't matter. He said, it's you. I said, yeah, that's right, yeah. And he said, I don't know how to thank you. He said, he's got the drinks in his hand like this. He said, I don't know how to thank you. How can I possibly? I mean, I was so excited. £2.50.
Still charged you for the drink.
He charged me for the drink.
How many years went past from the series to when you sent the pictures to then go in to visit? How many years?
25.
Wow. So that must have been a shock for him.
Oh, yeah. I'm always amazed that people recognise me. I mean, I wouldn't recognise me.
You're very recognisable. I mean, for a lot of us, my age, it's from Benidorm, but I mean, Shane's a big fan. We're going to go into a lot of the shows that he loves, but you're very recognisable, definitely.
Didn't even think that. It's, there's a man just come in.
Well, he's coming at the right time because I actually wanted to talk to you about The Young Ones, which, of course, you starred with the legend that is Sir Cliff Richard, who Shane is a huge fan of. Look at the reaction there. But how did that opportunity come about for you? Because that was huge. That was a really big deal.
Yeah. Oh, it was #1 picture of the box office of the year in England. It was amazing. No, I'm just trying to think. What had happened was I was doing a program called The Sunday Break. It was like called The God Slot, 6:15 till 7 on a Sunday, where I went to Manchester and Birmingham as a youth club, but it had a religious overtones to it. And I was pretending to be a member of this youth club and introduce whatever it was. I'm just trying to... Oh, I know. One of the people I had to interview that week was a young Canadian who just made a 16mm film. His name was Sidney Fury, who went on to become a big, big director. And I interviewed him, and all he was worried about was whether he was going to get his expenses for the weekend, whether he was going to get his overnight, right? And I said to him, don't worry, I'm sure it'll sort it all out. The years go by, and it's time to go to meet the director and the producer of The Young Ones. And who is the director of The Young Ones is Sidney Fury, still unshaven, right? And he's out there with his head in his hands like this. And he said, so tell me about yourself, Melvyn. What you been doing with yourself then? And I said, no, you tell me. Did you ever get your expenses, right? He then couldn't wait to get me out of the office because there was a producer there and everything. And he said, yeah. Well, look, I'll tell you what. He said, the part's Jimmy. If it's still in the final script, it's yours. Thank you very much. Goodbye. And he didn't want to be reminded of yesteryear. And then I got The Young Ones, and I spent half the film writing. I mean, I said, there's no scene here. So he said, we'll just write some lines then, for goodness sake. I remember I got to one point where he said, we're waiting to shoot. I said, I haven't written anything yet. And I said, could we have a credit, the cast? He said, what for? I said, for writing the script. I said, because I was actually in the middle of one scene where he said, we need something for tomorrow. And I couldn't believe it. And from that, it became an overnight. The original billing for The Young Ones was starring Cliff Richard, Robert Morley, Carol Gray, The Shadows, and a one-line actor called Robertson Hare, and his word was, he only had one word, which was, two, calamity. That was he was famous for that. And with Melvyn Hayes. I thought, that's wonderful. It was on the cards that were outside the cinema. Yeah. Then they decided, because he only had the one sentence of, calamity, they took his credit away, and they couldn't just leave mine with Melvyn Hayes, so they took it away. So when we came to do Summer Holiday, and they offered me Summer Holiday, I said, yes. I said, but could I have feature billing? Just to have, my name was with so-and-so, and Richard O'Sullivan, and etc. And they said, no, we don't like to be dictated to about billing by actors. So I said, all right, well, stick it. And I turned Summer Holiday down.
Wow.
I turned it down and said, I'm not asking for money. I'm just asking for, I think, the correct billing for the character I'm playing. And they said, no way. So I said, right. Then nearer the time, got nearer and nearer. And I said, phone them up and say, I'll do it without billing. On the opening night in the West End, I'm sitting with the producer, and I said to him, will you tell me something? Would you have come back to me? He said, of course. We needed you.
Oh.
When we came to The Wonderful Life, and over the years now, when they advertise Summer Holiday or The Young Ones, I get Cliff Richard, Carol Gray, Melvyn Hayes. I get third billing.
Is that a special moment for you when you see your name on something like that?
Well, it's just acknowledging how much credit you deserve for that film or that play or whatever. It's like James Mason once said, famous British actor James Mason. He was going to be starring opposite a famous film star lady, and I think in Paris it was, and she'd got the top floor of a hotel. And he said, "I'm sorry," he said, "I must have another hotel with the top floor." I said, "Why?" He said, "Because it affects my billing, it affects my money." He said, "Because it shows that I'm equal to the other artists in the film." I don't think people realise how important. I mean, I love to watch I work a lot for Talking Pictures channel, and it's all very old films, and I'm in most of them. And it's interesting to see how the billing has changed. For example, I saw one film with Bing Crosby, and all he had in the film was one chorus of a song. That's all it was, about 4 lines. And the credits at the end were streaming up, and there the bottom was, and Bing Crosby.
Really? On this?
Yeah. It's interesting to watch how it changes over the years.
What was Sir Cliff like to work with? So, because obviously you did 2 films, so you had a lot of fun?
3 films.
3 films.
I did The Young Ones, Summer Holiday, and Wonderful Life.
Wow.
Not There's a Wonderful Life, a famous one. It's a Wonderful Life, which wasn't terribly successful, unfortunately. But no, he was a grafter. I mean, he would be working, and as he said, there were the actors and there was us. Originally, they wanted Jet Harris to play my part. I think Hank Marvin to do Richard O'Sullivan. Teddy Green, the dancer, he played the part that Bruce Welsh, I think, was going to do from the Shadows. And then the choreographer, Herbie Ross, said, "No, I need actors and I need a dancer," which was Teddy Green. He said, "I need a dancer." And so we came in, brought us in as actors. Then we came to do Summer Holiday, they gave them a bit more. Then they did Wonderful Life, they gave the Shadows a bit more. And then suddenly they didn't need us anymore. They filmed a film called Finders Keepers, which I was thrilled to say was not a success because none of us were in it. But it's so long ago. I mean, a man stopped me in the street the other day, about a week ago, and said, "Mr. Hayes?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "Do you remember filming a film called Summer Holiday?" I said, "Well, only just." I said, "Because it was 63 years ago." And he said, "Well, my grandfather taught Cliff and you to drive the bus for that film." I said, "No." He said, "Yes." He said, and he said that Cliff was like born to it. He said he was wonderful. He said he settled in the seat and he held the steering of the bus and he was absolutely a genius. It was a thrill. I'm waiting for him to say, "And you were all right." And he said, "And as for you," he said that you left a lot to be desired.
Wow, critiqued you all these years later.
I was a stranger in the street talking to me about 60-odd years ago, how bad I was.
I can imagine getting criticised 60 years after doing the job.
About driving the bus.
So obviously we mentioned Shane's a big fan of Sir Cliff. What's your best memory, and because you've had a friendship for all these years, you spoke earlier that he did a nice video message for you recently.
Yeah.
What's your best memory of being with Cliff, or a story that you can kind of share? There's probably quite a few, I imagine.
Yeah, it was just, we'd come out to the studio after filming the day and there would be just thousands of girls there saying things like at the window saying, "We had a great time the other night, didn't we, at the party?" I said, no, we never went to a party. And this particular girl, we put in the newspaper the bands that Cliff was going to marry her and everything. And he'd never seen it in his life before. But what I liked about him is that he acknowledged the fact that he was working with people. I mean, I tell you one thing. He knocked on my door at the dressing room one day and said, "Could I use your loo?" And I thought, "You've got a toilet of your own." And he had a guitar, and he put his foot on the barrel of the toilet and started to play, big news, have you heard?" I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "You get a good echo from a toilet. You get the vibrations of the toilet." And the next day, it was in the film. It's one of the last numbers in Summer Holiday when he comes in and says, big news. And that first saw the light of day on my toilet.
That's a story that many people wouldn't know. I wanted to talk about, because I'm just going to read some of the names here, because I think it's incredible. The Crooks in Cloisters, is that correct? Am I saying?
Crooks in Cloisters, yes.
But Ronald...
It was a follow-up to the Pot Carriers.
But the cast is just... I mean, Ronald Fraser, Barbara Windsor, Bernard Cribbins, Wilfrid Bramble, who, I mean, I love Steptoe and Son. And obviously in that. When you work with such a stellar cast, for you as an actor, is that stimulating when you look around and think, wow, I'm working with all these people and you fit into that?
Well, I'm always amazed. I mean, when you suddenly, if you can imagine, I was in one film with Peter Cushing in Zambia, Lusaka, and the phone goes in my room, and it's Oliver Reed, saying, "Could you get down to the pool now, Melv?" He said, "I've got the entire stock of vodka." So I go down to the pool, and he's got 2 little bottles. He said, that's it. He said, "But be in my room in about an hour or 2 because the man's coming with the ivy." What? The ivy's coming, right? I go down to his bedroom, and there's Peter Cushing on the floor, kneeling on the floor. Keenan Wynn, American film star, kneeling on the floor next to him. And he said, and Ollie's on the floor as well. He said, "The man's coming." I said, "What man?" He said, "He's bringing the the ivory. Whatever happens, only offer him a $5. Don't offer him any more." And I thought, I'm sitting here with these film stars with big names, and we're discussing buying ivory. We're all going to die. And the thing was that when I left to come back to England, I'm at the airport with an ivory thing I've got from... In those days, it wasn't as bad as it is now because of ivories with the elephants. And there was a sign which said, all I could see was ivory, blah, 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 execution. And I said to my wife, I said, "I think we're going to die." We got to the counter of the, what do you call it, the passport office with the thing. And in front of me was a guy with a suitcase. And I thought, what are we going to do? And they opened the suitcase and it was full of porno pictures. They dragged him away. As they dragged, I said, "Run!" We went through. Bless him. That was a long time ago.
No, with Barbara Windsor, Bernard Cribbins, Wilfrid Bramble, working with such a stellar cast.
Well, I think it was one of Barbara's first films. But I mean, there's so many silly little stories, like Davy Kay, who was one of the characters in it, said, "I'm going to wear glasses, because my character's called Specs," right? And he put these glasses on, right, which like bottle tops they were. And we went to see Rushes the next day. And he said, I can't see my eyes. So he spent the rest of the film cleaning his glass before every scene. He'd go like this and put them on and take them off again and put them on the side. And it'd be like this. Wilfrid, he was lovely. And then the girl that I get in the end, is Francesca Annis. She was lovely, absolutely lovely. And we filmed on an island. And I can't even think about it. Probably down here somewhere.
Could be. We have a lot of stuff filmed in Cornwall. I mean, Shane was saying there's a part not far from here where they filmed some Doctor Who.
Really?
Yeah, they used a sandpit for William Hartnell. Am I right, Shane?
Yes.
Yeah.
Towards Penwithik area, yeah.
So he can show you that. But yeah, it could be down here. When I told people that you were coming on the show, a lot of people were excited. But mainly, for you, everyone gets that show where people associate, they did that, they did this show. And of course for you, it ain't half Hot Mum. That was
And you said it right. I mean, some people can't say it.
Well, what do they say?
It ain't half. You know that show that you did, or they'll say, you know, Dad's Army. I said, no, it wasn't Dad's Army. It ain't half Hot Mum. Oh, yeah. It was
big part of your life for many years, many episodes.
It was amazing. It was. There was a bit of luck in it for me, in as much as the character I was playing, which I was very happy with to start with in the first 2 series, was sort of second to George. I mean, after the thing, we did stage versions of it. It was, and my closest mate became Windsor. I mean, he spent the whole time shouting and screaming at me and everything. But we did a lot of touring together. And he would, bless him, he would navigate and I would drive. And we were working in Bournemouth and we had to get to Scotland. And he said, this weekend, can we take the B roads? I said, why? He said, I'm a twitcher. He said, I like to watch the birds and everything. And I said, but it's going to take us years and it's going to be horrendous. Anyway, we're driving along through the country roads up towards Scotland. And he said, if you see, going through these little villages, he said, if you see a post office, he said, a bank, if you see a bank, could you stop? I want to cash a cheque. So I said, we're not going to see a bank. And he said, well, what you'll see is a sign on one of these shops that does everything, changes things, money, does all sorts. Like that one there. And we stopped in this little village shop and just one man running out. And he went, Windsor, Melvyn. He said, he locked the door, the shop, he locked the door. He said, oh, do come through, come and have a cup of tea, please. Stay while you're here. And some biscuits, you want some biscuits? And a packet of biscuits off the counter, right? And he said, oh, I can't, you're my favourite show. I love it. And he went through episodes and discussed some of the scenes and could I have your autograph? Could you sign this? And that. He said, I can't, just a minute. And he dialed a number and said to me, this is my wife. Just say hello to my wife. Yeah, hello. Chat. After about a half an hour, I said, we've got to go. We've got a long journey. I said, forgetting why we came in, we wanted, Windsor wanted just to cash a cheque. He said, of course. No, how much do you want? And Windsor said, well, £50, 50. He said, yeah, of course. I said, yes. He said, have you got some form of identification?
You're joking.
No.
Was he joking?
No.
Oh,
no.
wow.
Have you got some form of identification? And Windsor said, well, we've just signed all your books and everything. So we eventually got the money. But he actually said, I have to have some form of...
I can't believe that. He recognises you. And
well, we were in a shop once and a woman said, hey, it's Frank Windsor. So I said, no, it's Windsor David. He said, no, it's Frank Windsor. And you're, what's his name? And Windsor said, Jimmy Cagney. So he said, hey, Mum, look, it's Windsor, Frank Windsor and Jimmy Cagney. People are funny.
was that the show where you noticed the fame side of things, where you were becoming that household name?
No, it never occurred to me, ever. It still doesn't. It never occurred to me. People stop me all the time now in the street, usually when I'm carrying heavy shopping bags. And I mean, it was, when you think we finished, it ain't our fault, I mean, 1982, which is 18, 28, 38, 40 odd years ago.
I was minus 11. That's incredible.
I know, it's, when you think about it.
Wow. I got to talk about, when you think of iconic British culture, Carry On is one of them. You know, I always think of Only Fools and Horses, Carry On, and you had the honour of being part of Carry On England.
The worst one ever made, yes.
Why? Really?
Oh, God, yes, it was terrible. I mean, what they thought was a good idea was Windsor saying, shut up. The only trouble is, each day he said, shut up. So when the film was made altogether, it was shut up, shut up, shut up. And you want to say, oh, Windsor, don't do it anymore. And I mean, I wasn't a great fan of the Carry-Ons. I mean, they had their market and everything. But it was the first time that they showed boobs, and they tried to make it sort of grown up sort of thing. It was nice to say, you know, the money was terrible. I think the top salary they ever paid was to Sid James and Kenny Williams. But some people, I believe, did it for nothing. I think Jack Douglas did, I think, 2 for nothing, I believe. Leslie Phillips, I think, did 1 for £100 or something.
Okay, just to get their name out
to
there.
be in part of, but I mean, my character was called Short House.
Earlier, we were talking about shows that wouldn't be made now. And I watched a clip of one that you were in called Love Thy Neighbour.
Oh!
And I was like...
Oh, don't. I've got a weak heart. You mustn't do that.
It was very different.
Oh, it was terrible.
Yeah.
It was dreadful. I mean, there was... bless him, there was a white actor and a black actor, and one was calling the other one White Honky and a Nig Noggin.
Yeah.
Terrible names. And it wouldn't have passed the censor today, but it's popular at its time. It's like there were so many of those things. I mean, bless it, on the buses, for example.
Yes.
It was so derogatory to people. And nobody thought about how upsetting it could be to some people. It's taken me all my life to learn to say, no, I won't do that.
Yeah.
No, I won't say that anymore, because you automatically did it. I mean, when I did Benidorm, I had to say to my kids, Daddy has to say a very rude word. He has to say, and I couldn't believe I was actually saying that word.
Is it the bit I think it is about the Visa card? Is it the F word?
It was the F word.
Yeah.
And he said, as you're going around the racetrack with Sheila Reid, could you swear a few times? Could I swear a few times? And which I did, of course. But you don't need it. I mean, to get a joke nowadays, you can't follow it. I mean, I was doing a program, and I can't even remember what it was, one of those late night chat shows. And they said, we're going to come and interview you after the break. You'll be you next. And then he spent the next 3 minutes with the worst language to the studio audience, and I said, I'm sorry, I can't follow that. I said, I can't go on and then do what I think is funny lines when you've just done a mouthful of swear words. It's a shame you didn't need that. None of those great comedians of yesteryear did.
Yeah.
You know, you don't need that at all.
I mean, it did with Mr. Pink. It worked for the character because I mean, you had this mafia boss essentially that had this pink outfit on. He was quite sassy. It was such a funny but random character.
Oh,
but
ridiculous!
It became, and I think you mentioned it earlier, so iconic. I mean, just one episode, yet one of the big characters of Benidorm that people, I see it on social media all the time on the groups. People share it every day.
Oh, really?
And it's such a popular character. Did you ever expect that from one episode?
Not at all. Not at all. I'm always amazed.
Should have done more. We needed more Mr. Pink in Benidorm. I've never done this before in an interview ever. So I'm actually going to invite Shane out to ask you a question because Shane was very excited about something before the interview. So I feel like this would be a good moment for him to ask a question. So I'm going to get him on the sofa, which he didn't know about. So just very quick.
I've got no microphone, so I'm
That's
speaking
okay.
into yours.
Your favourite show. So you were really excited about Super Ted.
Yes, so I was super.
But this is the man that I heard sing that song.
So you're very nice to mention the song, so thank you
Oh,
very much.
it was
indeed.
wonderful.
Thank
It
you.
was called, what's it called again?
Cornwall My Home.
Cornwall My Home.
My
That's
Home.
it. Keep your
Cornwall
lapel
My
on.
Home.
That will still pick me up.
Wow. Buy it now.
Oh, all for the air ambulance as well.
Yes, it's
So,
all for charity for the air ambulance.
What a gentleman. What absolute gentleman. So for me, I was super excited to find out that you was the voiceover in Super Ted for the character Tex, right?
No.
You were
Skeleton.
Skeleton. Was it
Tex.
Skeleton?
Tex, I got no muscles.
That's right. Well, I remember you speaking to Tex. That's why I'm getting all confused. I'm starstruck. But there's Skeleton. That's right. And for me, what was it like back then recording those sessions? You know, when you was with the other actors like John Pertwee and things like that.
Well, like I say, we'd film on a Sunday and we'd do 2 episodes. One in the morning, which was very straight. We each have our own individual sort of area of microphone, desk, etc. And then there'd be Roy, John Pertwee, myself, and of course, Super Ted himself. And in the morning, we just go straight through it, boom, boom, boom. Then we go out for a 3-hour lunch, which was like a liquid lunch, and we'd come back, and then with the second episode would be, and we now go to bulk, which is Roy Kinnear, Q, and he'd be fast asleep, right? And then the banter would go on, like I would say to one of them, "Are you full equity? Have you ever done this before?"
Mm-hmm.
That's a microphone you just fell into, you know. It was such fun to do, and it was so popular. And funny enough, a few years ago, there was an article in the Radio Times saying that Mike Young, the creator of Super Ted, was going to redo it. Was going to reuse Melvyn Hayes, but he'd have to change the character. Nowadays, you couldn't play Skeleton like that as an effeminate character. It's outrageous. But it never happened.
Oh.
We never redid it.
There you go.
Well, they might have done, and I've not heard about it.
Yeah.
They didn't tell me.
But just great memories for so many people in my kind of generation, for sure. It just held so many memories. And just before I jump off the sofa, I've just had a message come in from one of my dear friends who I said we're just interviewing at the moment. I can't take his call, interviewing Melvyn Hayes. And he said, he played Mr. Pink in Benidorm, right?
How
it's
funny.
very, and he said that a band that he knows and manage is in Spain have named the band after you. It's called Mr. Pink.
No.
Yeah. And
That
he
is
sent me a video
amazing.
clip. I'll show you after the show. But fantastic.
Thank you, Shane. But yeah, he was so excited. So what I wanted to ask you, I was looking at, obviously you've done so much. When you go through like a book and you're putting so much in there, Do you ever get a little bit nervous where you think, oh, should I put that in? Shouldn't I? When you let little things out in a book?
Yeah, but that's why you have an editor. That's why you have somebody that can go through and say, I didn't say that because you get sued. And if you can get sued, I'll get sued. So it has to go through a lawyer to read it, etc. But no, there's some things I've said in there that I didn't realise I had the balls to actually say. And there's some moments in it that I'm sorry. I had a bad couple of years. But well, it's in the book. And I wanted it so that my children would know what I did for a living, why I was away so much, why I wasn't able to attend some of their school activities because I was touring somewhere abroad, kneeling on some carpet somewhere, buying ivory. And I think, I've read a lot of biogs over the years, and you read things in it and you think about the people, you think, I didn't know that. But it's, there won't be a second. That took me 38 years to write. So I worked it out, it makes me nearly 140 by the time I'm finished. And I don't think that happens. That's why I've called that book, It Ain't Half Late, Mum.
Such a lovely title. And you know, it's in the short time I've been with you, you're such an amazing person. You have such a lovely energy. And I think the fact that you're writing a book to almost gift to your children, and it's kind of an open letter, essentially, to say, this is what I've done and this is why. I mean, you must be excited to read it as well. Yeah. It's good. Oh, you've read it? Okay. We're going to do something now for you, which is a little quiz.
Oh, yeah.
All about you.
Oh, my God.
So we're gonna put your 75 years in the business to the test with some questions. So how many episodes of It Ain't Half Hot, Mum did you do?
56.
Yes. Incredible. Yeah. I love that. You recently appeared in Not Going Out. What was your character's name?
He was the granddad. He was a grandfather. My name's... I can't... Give me a clue.
Begins with an E.
With what?
Begins with an E.
Ernest?
Yes. There we go. So we got two. You've been on Countdown a lot.
Oh, yes.
Do you know how many episodes you've done of Countdown?
Something like 27 or something.
Yeah.
How many?
27. Wow. Did I leave? He's lying around. That's incredible. 27.
Something like that, yeah.
You appeared on Family Fortunes. Do you remember Family Fortunes?
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember what year you were on that?
It was a Christmas edition.
It was. If you get this now, I'm going to be mind blown.
No, I don't think so.
You take a random guess. I'll give you a clue. It was in the 80s.
Yeah, I was going to say 86.
It was 81.
Oh.
What year did you appear on The Thin Blue Line?
Oh, my goodness. Now, that's very weird. Because who plays the lead in that?
Rowan Atkinson?
Rowan Atkinson. And I remember I came on, got a round of applause, and he dried. And we did it again, and nobody clapped.
Oh,
no. What was the question?
So what year did you appear on The Thin Blue Line?
I don't know, what, 90?
96. What was your character name in the film Santa Claus?
Goober?
Yes. You got it. In 1969, you appeared on the TV series The Ugly Girls in Town. What was the character?
I don't even remember it.
It was Harry. How many episodes of Dixon of Dock Green did you do?
3.
4. This one, I love EastEnders, and obviously you were in EastEnders for a short amount of time, but can you remember the character's name?
Mr. beginning with R.
Yes.
Robin Raymer.
Rawlins.
Mr. Rawlins.
And then the last question is, Mr. Pink brought a debt from which iconic Benidorm character?
Gutter.
So he bought the debt off a character of Benidorm. So who did he buy the debt from? So someone owed money. What was the name of the character that owed Mr. Pink money? So you raced her on the track.
Yeah, no.
Sheila's character.
Was he famous?
Sheila Reid. So it was her character.
Oh. No.
So it was Madge. But you did incredibly well. The countdown ones got me. That was incredible. The countdown. I mean, yeah, 27 and 56 episodes. Ernest, it's been amazing just going through your life story because you've done so much. And for you to reflect, it must be like, wow, you know, because you said you kind of do this. It's a hobby. You love it. It's never felt like work. And here we are now going through so many stories. So thank you so much for your time today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's easy. It's because the only trouble is I go off at tangents.
They're good tangents, trust me. The stories are good. No, thank you so much for your time. I've really appreciated it.
Thank you.